Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Base on Balls podcast. I'm your host, Bracton, joined tonight with Paul and Tita. Say hello, guys.
What's going on?
What's up? What's up, gentlemen?
All right, so we got a really interesting week this week, a lot of big games, a lot of interesting storylines. I think we're going to start it off with Paul against Dave's Rochester Red Wings, getting it done with a 156-point day. Paul won the matchup 665 to 563. Paul, since you're on, let's hear what you got to say about this.
Yeah, huge mess win. Really need to get off the snide and get my first win of the season. Wasn't easy. Dave had a great week as well. Over 300 points with his bats. About 250 with his arms. I was sweating it the whole week. I was down 12 coming into Sunday. But I had 4 starts lined up for today versus Dave only had 1. And when 2 of those starts were Tanner Hoke and Brandon Fott, really tilted my way. 37 out of Fott today. But the big one was George Kirby last night, dropping 54 points. Just a huge day, huge game for me. I kind of feel like my bats and arms are starting to round into form at the same time, which is a big deal for me. But as for Dave's team, he's got it. I mean, I know that we've kind of crapped on his team a little bit on this podcast during the season, but he's got good bats. I mean, he's got, William Contreras dropping 50, 60 points every week, I feel like. He's got Bailey Ober now, made his debut for him, dropped 40. Papayet's good. Martin Perez has had a decent season. JP Sears, crazy week, 40 points, 2 starts. So he's got good players. It's just can he get enough? 563 would have beaten, I think, 4 or 5 teams this week. So it's a little bit of matchup unluck, bad luck. But good for me. Good to get off the snide. Needed this win. Otherwise, I don't know what I would have done. So yeah, good week, good start. Now we can build off that.
All right, Tita, what do you think of this matchup?
Well, Paul has a really good team, and that's the thing with Paul building his arms. When you have elite arms, which this is the thing, that cost a lot, but like I have nobody on my team outside of Ronel Blanco that can drop 50 in a start. Like George Kirby dropping 54, Webb with 37, Cole Irvin 39. I mean, Fat 37. I mean, Paul got. That's why you Hawk with 52. I mean, that's why you go out, and you get those premier arms because it can change a matchup in one start. And you look at his bats. Arozarena struggling a little bit right now. Carpenter struggling a little bit, but Gunnar Henderson dropped 75. I watched a lot of Josh Naylor this weekend against the Braves, and he hasn't been great, but he can drop 85 to 90 next week. Dave, the Bailey Ober trade is one I'm probably going to regret, like I told y'all before we got on here. That one is, I think Ober is a top 30 starter in the league. Papayet is it had a really good start. And JP Sears, who's a guy I like. I've tried to get JP Sears quite a bit of times from Dave. It ain't happening. And now you look at his bats. Dave's close. Riley Green has been elite. That's a Bismarck Lark legend. He is elite, but the rest of the guys, the rest of the bats, kind of struggling for him a little bit. Torkelson, he gets -2 for the week. He just got to have some more bats stepping up. But, I think Paul's got a really good team. He tweaked it. This week his tweaks paid off. Dave's still building. I still think Paul's a playoff team.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna echo a lot of what you guys are saying. Paul Gunnar Henderson, 75 points is a huge reason why he got it done. I was a big believer in Randy Rosarena kind of turning it around a little bit. He has yet to do that, but I still think he can and he will. Um, I will echo what you guys have been saying about Paul's pitching with Tanner Houck and George Kirby and Brandon Pfaadt all dominating this week. But not to discount Dave's performance here. I mean, we got a lot of guys like you guys mentioned, JP Sears, but like 22 from Clark Schmidt, 26 from Martin Perez, 33 from Kyle Gibson. Like guys are out here producing for Dave that we wouldn't have otherwise expected. So I agree with you guys that Dave is definitely closer than some of these other teams that we're going to talk about here. But he did a good job this week, and so did Paul. So congrats to Paul for turning the ship around here, and we'll see if it can continue. Um, Tita, let's talk about your matchup against Jab. Close matchup here, 765 to 625. Tita, what are your thoughts on your matchup this week?
Well, I messed my team up. I didn't make some good. I made some bad managerial decisions with my starters, uh, and I was winning headed into Friday. And Jab's team this weekend just took off. Um, that's basically all I can say. I mean, he had some amazing starts this weekend. Eric Fetty dominated me all week. I mean, his bats are just super elite. Ryan Jeffers kicked my tail all week too. Will Smith. I mean, it. I mean, young. I mean, not young Kill. Jordan Alvarez. I mean, it was just an onslaught at times this week. You know, he had one, two, three, four, five. He had five bats go for 50 plus this week, which was huge. Eric Fetty got 85 points in a two-start week. Gossman got 52 in a two-start week. I mean, Nola with 42. I mean, he just absolutely wore me out. And then Emerson Hancock has been a revelation about the last month of the season or so. I mean, he had 32. Luis Castillo 32. You know, my bats kept up. I mean, so I kind of take solace in that. I mean, he had 399 with his bats. I had 397, so I feel good there. But I've kind of learned with my strategy of not having elite arms. This is kind of the first week where I've kind of seen what can happen when you have some bad starts and you don't start the right guys. Did not starting Blanco and starting Jose Soriano was a almost a 50-point swing. You know, his arms jabs was 366. My arms were 228, and 228 is not where you want to be. Um, and it's not where I need to be as far as my arms. But you know, I'm tinkering right now. You know, I traded Machado tonight, which we'll talk about. Kind of like what I got, but you know, I just didn't have a really good week with my arms, and that's something to kind of look at going forward. But like I said, you know, I'm 3-1. I think with the schedule I played, I'll take it. But you know, I still got to make some tweaks and adjustments and kind of see where we're at. You know, going into the last 10 games of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying here. I think a lot of your core guys that are going to be here this time next week when we talk about your team, like Nico Horner had a 30-point week. That was fine. Tyler O'Neill came back and had 47 for you, chipped in. Max Muncy had 39. Like, you got 397 from your bats is only two less than Jab with all of these amazing performances out of, I mean, 104 catching points from Jab is unbelievable. And then plus you had Freeman's 50, Bobby Witt's 58, Juan Soto's 58. Like you kept up with that with all of the bats and all the moves you made during the week. And I found that to be incredibly impressive. But like you said, pitching is the difference. And I have no doubt that you'll be able to turn some moves and see what you can do throughout the weeks coming up. But really hard fought matchup against one of the, I think, best top three rosters in the league. Paul, what do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, so Tita hit on it a little bit. I think the biggest mistake in this matchup was Tita got Ronel Blanco back for me and didn't start him against Colorado. I know that game was in Mexico City and the altitude and this and that. But I mean, Blanco, as Tito knows, he's owned him for 95% of the season. I think for every start that he's actually made, I got him and never even had him for a start and traded him back. He's been SP1. And even without counting that no hitter for his first start, dude's averaging like 30 points a start. So clearly, a good pitcher. And again, you always worry about the blow up, but I mean, I thought he was a better option than Soriano, or, whatever Tita threw out there, Lorenzen. He's a good pitcher, and I get it. So, but as for, Jab and his team, 399 from his bats is really good. Jab, he kind of relies a lot on his bats to win games. And 399 is going to do that for you. But Tito was right there with 397. So clearly he has a good team. It's a good roster. Tito's a great owner. I know he's down on himself this week for making some mistakes, which, I mean, I agree. He did make some mistakes. But it's tough to beat a team like Jab when his arms are throwing up 366. If Jab is going to put 366 up with his arms, we might as well just go home, because that team's unbeatable at that point. Bryce Miller had 4 points. I mean, you don't expect 4 points out of Bryce Miller. So, if anything, his team might have underperformed, which is a scary thought. So, great week for Jab. Tita, I know, is upset that he lost his undefeated streak, but I think he'll get right back on the horse and just be just fine.
Okay. Really, that's some interesting stuff. We'll go rip the Band-Aid off of me here. I lost 557 to 395 to Homco this week. Honestly, embarrassing performance out of my guys this week. I really thought I was going to do what Paul did and kind of right the ship. I mean, Homco put up a manageable number, that to where if I had an okay week, maybe things would have been different. But instead, I lost by triple digits. So, not very happy with how my team performed. I like Anthony Volpe, 51 points. That's a bright spot. Had to send Holiday down because the real Orioles sent him down, and he only had 2 points again. He's kind of frustrating. I got good production from Jared Jones in a 2-start week. Slade Ciccone on waiver wires with 28. Um, Notable performances there. Clay Holmes did what he does. Put up 169 points pitching, which ironically wasn't that much less than Homco. It was roughly a 18-point swing. Not terrible, but Homco only had 7 starts to my 11. So again, I'm not really happy with this, but at the end of the day, I got to remember that maybe this year isn't going to be my year as far as winning goes. My team is still very young, and I don't know. This isn't. I gotta not be. I gotta have the memory of a goldfish here with all these losses. So we'll see what happens. But props to Homco for battling it out and having some good performances. 370 points from his bats this week. 49-point Dylan Cease start. Like, good for him. Glad he got the win this week, and good luck to him going forward. Paul, what do you think about this matchup?
I mean, you nailed it when you said memory of a goldfish, because, I mean, when you take this strategy of getting all these top prospects and all this youth, this is what's going to happen every now and then. Until these guys find their footing, you're just going to have to roll with and deal with 395 points in a week. It's just, I mean, it's going to happen. I know it stinks. I know it stinks Jackson Holly got sent down. I know it stinks Nastrini got sent down. But they'll both be back. They'll both be fine, especially Holiday. I mean, as the premier Orioles fan in this league, Jackson Holiday is going to be just fine. It happens to the best of them. All the top prospects have struggles early in their careers. They work it out. They'll be fine. unless you want to trade him to me, in which case he won't be fine, and you should just give him me. But for Hamko, 370 points from the bats is an absurd number. Just really solid performances. The Michael Harris, the Trey Turner, Reese Hoskins, Campusano, like really good bats, really good bat performances. It's the arms that kind of still are letting them down. I'm not sure, how he can fix that necessarily. I mean, because you've got decent names, Dylan Cease, Tristan McKenzie, Charlie Morton. Like, those are good names. Like, and especially they're not really young guys either. So it's like, if I'm Hamko, I know we got the win. I'm kind of pulling my hair out going, what more do I have to do? Like, these guys should be performing at higher levels, and they're just not. So, I mean, it's tough. I get it. I've been there. I was there the first 3 weeks of this season, I feel like. So, I get it. You kind of just gotta either the two ways to do it, in my opinion. It's either, shake up your roster or just, take a deep breath, take a step back and say, I like my guys. I'm rolling with my guys. I don't know if you should go in the middle, maybe make a tweak, but that's kind of my 2 cents on Hanko's team.
And Tito, what do you think?
Well, when you look at Hamko, what was the start limit this week?
Oh yeah,
He had 7.
yeah.
I mean,
he needs to have 8.
yeah. So I mean, he had 7. Um, so you look at it and like, okay, if he gets 5 more starts, he breaks 200. He may be around 230, 240. That's a little bit more respectable with everything, and he has the pieces to get some starters. I know it's hard to kind of stream starters because they're, everybody scoops them up. I just think his team's not firing right now. I mean, it's not a talent thing. I just think, Father Time, catches up with a lot of people. I think it's caught up to Castellanos. I really do. I'm not a big Castellanos fan. Estrada's struggling. Andrew Vaughn struggling. Campuzano, Hoskins, those guys, Trey Turner, Michael Harris, they've been okay. Teoscar Hernandez, Paul Goldsmith, those guys have been fine. Cease was good. Charlie Morton is just solid. But he's just got to kind of figure out what he wants to do as far as how he wants to approach it, because at any point Hamko's team can take off and really beat anybody. It's just kind of what he wants to do, and how he wants to shake things up. Bracton's team, it's going to be with the young guys. It's going to be hit or miss. I mean, Volpe, there's no bigger Volpe fan than Bracton, and he's rewarding him. I mean, he had 51 this week. He's been a really good shortstop. Holiday, he can kind of decide what he wants to do with Holiday. I think the good thing about Bracton's team is Bryce Terang has just been a stud through the first month of the season. And so I think it kind of gives Bracton options of kind of what he wants to do. If he wants to get a haul for Holiday, it's possible.
Very
because,
possible.
Yeah, I still think Holiday is a good, really, I mean, he's a stud. Don't get me wrong. But I also think with Terang long term, with what Terang has done, and Terang's pedigree he was a first round pick. So you kind of look at that. I mean, Jackson Churio, 2 points on the week. It's just Bracton's got to get some pitching, and he knows that. I think Jared Jones is a keeper for him. I think, getting, Andrew Abbott's fine. Slade Ciccone, wow. I mean, guy comes straight out the gate, gets 28. He's a young starter, too. So, I think Bracton of course, he has the potential. He's got some really good young arms in the minors. I think Bracton's a wild card, like I said, because the haul he could get for Jackson Holiday, if he decided to put him on the block, could really replenish some spots on this team that could make him dangerous to upset some guys, and I think that's a decision that Brackton's going to have to make, which I understand holding him 1,000%. But I think with Tovar, I think with Volpe, and I think with, even like I said, Bryce Terrain, um, he's got some kind of, he can make a decision to kind of balance out his team a little bit if he decides to go that route. So I think
Just don't
both
do it this
teams,
week.
I think both teams will be able to rebound. I think Brackton's rebound is just going to be dependent on what he decides to do going forward. I think Homko is the same way. He's got to decide whether he wants to kind of play the long game or if he wants to kind of make some splashes because he has the pieces to go get some guys if he doesn't want to be patient. So it's interesting. Both teams, I think both teams still are kind of where they thought they would be if you really look at it. Uh, like I said, I don't think there's an easy answer for Homko's team because he does have names, he does have talent. It's just not firing.
Yeah, I mean, Tita mentioned Father Times. Let's talk about John Height and his rebound against Smell this week. Put up a 778 performance, which is the second highest number in the league. John Height wins 778 to 536 against Smell. Paul, what do you think about this matchup?
So I'll start with Smell, and I got 2 words for the league. Alec Bohm. Dude dropped 80 freaking 7 points this week, and if you've been paying attention on the main Discord channel, Smell has been hawking this guy like crazy to everybody, just pumping him up, talking about how he was the highest scoring bat last week, and he's again the highest scoring bat this week, and he's right. Like Alec Bohm has just had a phenomenal start to the year. I mean, a great April for sure. And he's on the block apparently. So anybody that wants to pay up for a great hitter, hit up Smell. But outside of that, Smell, did not have a great week with his bats. I mean, if you take out the 87 points, I think he's about 150 on the week from his bats. That's abysmal. Um, his arms were good, 303 points. Chris Paddock, of course, the second I trade him, decides to become vintage Chris Paddock. Really good arm for Smell, 28 years old, in the prime of his career. Just really solid. Billy Falter, I mean, he was just about out of baseball like a year ago and drops 42 points. So a good find for Smell. Tanner Beebe, who he paid for earlier this year, 43. So, he's got good pieces. And if he can get a good haul out of Bohm, then, he'll be well on his way. But John Height, I think he heard us talking last week about his team is old and feeble. And he said, just watch me now. 440 points out of the bats is just insanity. I mean, Judge finally found his form a little bit. Mookie Betts is still Mookie Betts. Real Muto good. Otani below 50. But Max Fried decided to come and play this week. Complete game shutout. Rodon was really good. So yeah, I still kind of doubt John Height and his future prospects. Only having three total prospects on his team. I think the median age for his team is like 32. So it's kind of a win and enjoy it now while you can situation because, as Braxton said, Father Time is coming and he comes for everybody, and he's coming for John Height's team. If I'm John Height, I look at selling at least one or two of these guys. Springer, Dolis Garcia, maybe. I know we got rid of Machado, but I mean, I do something. I don't know. It's his team and it's his call, but I fear that within 2 years he's going to be barely able to field a team because all those guys are going to be old and retired. So, but still, obviously, great win, 778, great win. So,
Yeah, I mean, I want to give John Height some credit this week. I props to him for sticking up for some of these old guys and watching them ball out. I mean, Aaron Judge is back, like you said, 62 points. That's a good sight to see. But for every Aaron Judge, there's a Francisco Lindor with 26 points, Nolan Arenado with 18 points, Marcus Simeon with 19 points, Christian Walker 1 point this week, Matt Olson 15. Like, I think that another move is coming. If I know John Height, I think that he's a smart guy. Obviously, he made a pretty good Machado trade, which we're going to talk about. But I feel like there's going to be more of that coming, where he's going to get a top prospect here now and then for some of these guys. Maybe Arenado or Lindor is next to get traded. But either way, we can speculate all we want. But the fact of the matter is, 440 out of the bats is insane. 338 from the pitching only was 30 or about 35 more than Snell here. And Snell had, you mentioned Chris Paddock. I mean, I feel like we were all kind of waiting for vintage Chris Paddock. I owned him at a time too. 55 in a week was he's back. Maybe that'd be great for Snell. I also owned Quinn Priester, who had 32. I also owned Reese Olson, who had 29. Just a lot of former Larks doing business for Smell over there. But like you mentioned, I mean, Smell has some bat problems. Jordan Walker got optioned, not having a very good start to the season. But Alec Boehm is legit, and we'll see what Smell can get for him. But I think he's going to be like me this year, where he's not necessarily focused on winning, he's focused more on building for the future. And the haul he's going to get for Boehm is going to help him do that. So, Tito, what do you think about this matchup?
Kind of just touching on what everybody else kind of already touched upon. I think Smell getting 300 points from that group of starters is amazing. And Smell's a good owner. In other leagues, he's taken this long rebuild in basketball, for example, and built a heck of a Scrubs dynasty basketball team by kind of bottoming out for 1 year and then just making really good decisions. I actually think if I was in Smell's position, and I know he's not going to agree with me on this, I would owning everybody's pick. I think there's an outside shot. Like he could put together a playoff caliber roster because you have everybody's pick. So I think if he wanted to, he could do the exact opposite and start buying instead of selling because at the end of the day, he's still going to have those picks from everybody else anyway. Height is he got 32 points from Larks legend Kyle Finnegan. I mean he's getting healthy. Rodon with 73. I mean Freed with 68. I actually had him in my other baseball league and uh, didn't get him in there at 619 at locked. I couldn't get him in. I missed that. But if you look at the bats, I mean, Judge being great. Mookie Betts has been probably the first half MVP in my opinion. Simeon getting 19, which is, last week against me, I think Simeon got 90. So I mean, it kind of do. I think with some of these bench bats too, if Height's looking for arms, he can move some of those guys. Like Arias. Luis Arias is a really good fantasy asset for the right teams that's built on power. They could use a guy with first base, second base eligibility. Seeing what's going on with Zach Gallen will be crucial because he can't afford any more injuries to starting pitching. But like I said, Height's going to have a good team this year. He's going to be a contender. But in the future, there's some serious issues. But Height's a good owner. John Height's gonna get it figured out, and he's gonna make savvy moves. And I just hope he takes care of my boy Marcell Ozuna. He was the key to the Sound's success, and I traded him, and that's why I lost this week.
Can I say one thing real quick before you go, Braxton?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, I was looking through And Jurickson Profar appeared in a game this week for Smell. He appeared in a game this week for Tita. And he appeared in today for me. And he wasn't traded a single time this week. So Smell had him and dropped him. Tita had him and dropped him. And I picked him up last night and played him today. I think that's just a fun nugget. So I
Oh
just
yeah,
wanted to
we
point that out.
we we love pointing out stuff like that where we see players performing on multiple teams. I love talking about that.
But usually it's because of trading, but in this case it was add drop, add drop, add.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. That's actually really funny. All right, so we're gonna move on to Cody and Chad. Not a very close game at all. 794 for the Bowling Green Hot Rods and Cody versus 570 for Chad. I'll start on this one. I've always said that Cody's the class of the league, and I mean, I think this week just kind of puts the icing on the cake on that. Cody's pitching on the year has outscored everybody by 300 points or more. Bry's in second with 1426. Cody's at 1753 because of performances like 72 from Logan Gilbert in a two-start week, 53 from Hunter Green in a two-start week, 37 from Shota Imanaga. I think that's how you pronounce that. 52 from Mason Miller, eight strikeouts, three saves. Like unbelievable. Like 40 points from Chris Sale. It's just a well-oiled machine here, and that's with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. struggling so much already this year. He's got 13 points on the week. Zach Geloff 10 points on the week. Uh, what do you call it? Just some Cody Bellinger 13 points on the week. Like there are some guys here that haven't been performing as well as you'd expect them to, and he's still dropping 794, which is just mind-boggling to me. And large part of that is Ellie De La Cruz is, in my opinion, the top five player in baseball. I kick myself every day for trading this guy. I mean, just unbelievable week again. Almost as many stolen bases as strikeouts. It's just unreal. 65-point week for him. But Chad had some guys go. What do you call it? 34 from Ha-Seong Kim, 34 from Dansby Swanson, 35 Wyatt Langford hitting his first career home run this weekend. Evan Carter rebounded with 32. Like Chad's got some pieces, and all of this hype that I was just talking about with Cody. Chad kept it kind of close with arms. Set at 324 for Cody, 29 or bat. Sorry, 324 for Cody, 295 for Chad. Like it's pretty respectable. And it's just pitching 470 to 275 is just unbelievable. But yeah, I'll go to Tito with your thoughts on this one.
Well, Cody had 169 points from his relief pitchers. He had, like, let me say that again, 169 points from his three relief pitchers at closer, Mason Miller, who's starting pitching eligible, and Fernandez. Like, that's that's just stupid. 169 points, and he won by 224. So I mean, that just goes to show you like how important when you have those elite closers, how important that is. But getting 470 points from your arms, I mean, like I said, it helps with 169 from your relief pitching. But I mean, this is the exact opposite of my team as far as the investment in arms. And like I said with Paul's team, when you have elite arms, when you pay up and get those elite arms, like these are the kind of weeks that you can have on a more consistent basis because those arms are going to carry you at times. Which my team, I don't think my arms are carrying me because of how I've invested in them. But they're also hard to get. I think me and Cody made a trade tonight. Getting Machado. I I think he still could use some lineup help. I really do. I think his bats getting what they get 324, which isn't bad at all. But I mean, the dude's arms are that's with a 1 point start from Barrios. He got 1 point this week. Miss Keller got 13. So I mean, those guys got 14 points between them, and he still puts up 470, damn near 500. Pardon my language. Uh, I mean, I'm kind of coming around on Cody's team as being right there with Bry as far as the two teams who've kind of risen above everybody else, in my opinion, early on. Chad's still building. He's getting it figured out. Dude's got plenty of assets to kind of do whatever he wants to do. Um, Bryce Elder coming back and getting 40 this week is big. You know, Joe Ryan, Yamamoto, you know, Yanir Cano getting 40 points was big. And like I said, Chad is an elite owner, one of the best owners I've been around. He's subtle. He's got a price. He knows what he's going to pay, and he just knows how to build. And I think if you know, like I said, he's got the really good thing about having as many assets as he has in the minors is he can kind of pick and choose where to go and what avenue to take. But like I said, I think nothing to hold your head about for Chad at all. Cody's team is just, you know, I really just think him and Bry's team are a step ahead of they're on that top tier, and then you kind of look around, and I think Height and Hen and Jab's team are right there in that next three, and then there's a little bit more space, and then it's a couple of the rest of us right there fighting for playoff spot 6, 7, and 8. It's 8 teams make the playoffs here, right?
7.
7. So I think with 7 teams, I mean, shoot, I don't think a lot of people are. I mean, it's going to be a battle. But I just, like I said, Cody's an elite owner. He knows what he wants. He's not afraid to go out and spend a package to get a guy. And like I said, Chad can do the same thing. So, like I said, Cody is set up for really good success, and he's got enough depth in his arms to withstand an injury or two.
And Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Tita pretty much hit on everything I was going to say. The only thing I'll add on, I think, you know, Cody's got a lot of great players on his team, obviously. I think we all know that. I think by far the MVP of his team is Mason Miller. I mean, this dude is crazy. If you pull up his last few games, since April 14th, he's had 5 appearances. 18, 15, 18, 18, and 16. All saves. And in order to get 18 points in like a 1 inning save, it's 3 strikeouts and no walks and no hits. So that means in 3 of his last 5 appearances, this dude, well, okay, one of them he went an inning and a third and gave up 1 hit. But still, he went 3 strikeouts, 1 inning, no walks, no hits. That's insane. I mean, that's a crazy thing. That doesn't just happen. And he's eligible in the starting position. So it's a 4th closer basically. And on top of, obviously, as Tita said, Emmanuel Clase, Camilo Doval, and Evan Phillips. Closers for good teams, and I think all 3 are in their 20s. So it's again, bullpen can take you a long, long way. To me, it's the difference maker in a good team and a great team. And if you have a bullpen, then I mean you're already a step ahead. But as Tita said, Chad is a really good owner. Absolutely nothing to hang your head on. You know, it was a slow week with the bats. They happen. It's the same thing as Braxton. When you have a lot of young guys, weeks like this tend to happen. And Chad's got a lot of young guys. So like, you know, Evan Carter, Wyatt Langford, you know, even Christopher Morel, Jordan Westberg. Like they're good players. They're going to be really good bats, you know. But it's growing pains. It's growing pains. So Chad's gonna be there at the end of the season fighting for a playoff spot, I think, just like the rest of us. So again, you're gonna lose to a team like Cody. There's worse things to do. You regroup and you get after it next week.
Interesting. So now we're gonna go to Bry versus Hen, a battle of the heavyweights here. I'll let Tita start this one off. What do you think, Tita?
Well, this kind of didn't really go the way I thought it was going to go. Um, I think this kind of showed me more about Bry. This matchup told me more about Bry's team than it did Hen's team. Because Hen's, like I said, he's going to be there. Getting -2 this week from Corbin Carroll is crazy. I don't think that happens a lot. I think Hens ran into some starting pitching issues. That's caused a little bit of a problem. He had 214 with his arms this week. That's not great at all. He can be a lot better than that. Um, but these two teams, I mean, I think the biggest thing, and this shocks me, is Bry getting 461 with his bats. With Michael Garcia 68, Edward Julian 64, Salvi Perez getting 50. I mean, I would have thought at the beginning of the year, like I said, that Bry's bats would keep him from getting to the finals and being a championship team, but him getting 461 on top of his arms not having great weeks besides Scooble getting 83, and that's really it. He got some really good numbers with his relief pitchers. Losing Luzardo is a big blow. Um, I don't know. I thought that Hen would win this matchup, um, but he had some pitching problems, and like I said, Bry's bats. Like I would not have thought Bry would have a 460-point week with his bats. I figured, Bry's built on his arms, but that was surprising. But like I said, I think Bry and Cody are a step above right now. The group of Hen, uh, Hen, freaking now I went brain dead.
John Height.
Jab, yeah, and Height. But like I said, I mean both of these guys, I think Bry's got some options because of his uh, prospect depth. I think Hen, with his prospect depth, he might have to move a guy like Snelling to maybe get another arm that he may want. Or he can keep shopping with me for low level arms. I'm fine with that. I keep them in rotation. So I don't know. Like I said, this was one of the most surprising ones of the week, just because I thought Hen would win. So shout out to Bry, man, big win.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to echo what you just said, Tito. I think that we've been saying a common theme of the last couple podcasts is that Hendog has been struggling with pitching. And I mean, to his credit, he has tried to address some of these issues. I believe he traded for Seth Lugo and Paul Blackburn in back to back weeks. But I mean, Cutter Crawford came back down to earth with a 10-point start. What do you call it? Spencer Turnbull had 23, which is solid. Michael Waka, though, in 10 innings with 6 points. Like, I know Hen's not happy about the pitching. 214 with 56 of those 214 coming from relief pitching isn't good at all for someone who got 12 starts that week. He knows he's got to fix it, but I mean, kind of what you guys have been talking about with young guys, right? And my team, Corbin Carroll, -2 after a year he had last year is pretty unexpected. Bo Bichette, 14. Like, Yanier Diaz has been one of the best young catchers in the league, only put up 7 this week. So he's got some growing pains in there too, spotted in with the big guys like Alonso and Jose Ramirez and Acuna. Acuna had a down week too, 24. Um, but then there's 63 from Mark Canna for some reason. So I guess it all balances out for Hen. But I want to focus on Bry here too a little bit because I believe I've been higher on Bry than a lot of people. I believe I picked Bry to win last week on the pod. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure I did. Bry just is a beast when it comes to managing the waiver wire and managing relief pitching, getting all these points from guys he picked up. Um, he's just the best at some of the stuff that he does, and He's found some amazing players. Julio Rodriguez had a solid week for him following the big trade with 30 points. And then Tita mentioned the 64 from Julian and 68 from Garcia. So I agree with what Tita said. Brian, Cody have clearly separated themselves from the pack. If I had to rank the top teams right now, I would say Cody 1, Bry 2, Jab 3, John Height 4. With I really like the direction Paul's heading in. I think Tita's going to be up there. Like everybody, like you all have all been saying, it's going to be a battle. So we're going to be in for a treat going forward here. But Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I know Hen had a bad week. I mean, quote unquote bad week. 618's really solid still, and scoring 400 over 400 points with your bats. Can't be crapped on too much. I don't think, but I think Corbin Carroll -2 really has had a slow start to the year. Really slow start to the year. Acuna only scoring 24, Bichette only 14, and he still scored over 400 points with his bats. Like if his stars play like stars, he would probably would have dropped 500 with his bats. So I mean, I get it's easy to say, well, Hen over 100-point loss to another team. Oh, maybe he's not as good. I think Hen's team is still like right there. I don't think it's going anywhere either. Um, you know, he does need to work on his arms. I'm not sure how he's going to do that necessarily, because again, it's super hard. I've gotten a few arms in the last couple of weeks. It's super hard to trade for these guys. I mean, my farm system was probably top 3, top 4 maybe in the league coming into this year. I think I have like 23 prospects now. I mean, I've ran through those guys. Just because I was like, okay, I'm kind of tired of this rebuild stuff. I want to win some games. I know I'm only 1-3 now, but I feel like getting arms is super hard to do. But once you do it, you just can't look back. Like once you get those guys, you got to keep them, and you got to hope they can stay healthy and they can stay producing. Um, Again, I don't think that he's in a bad spot. I don't think Hen's in a bad spot, but he's kind of got to look and say, okay, what do I want? Do I want to win, or do I want to have good offensive talent and good prospects and take chances on David Bednar's, I mean, or James Paxton's, Cutter Crawford's, Paul Blackburn's, those type of guys, and just hope that they can do enough to support the bats. It's a strategy. I'm not saying it's the right or the wrong strategy, but I just don't know if that's the right one or not. I mean, it's something for him to decide. But as for Brian, his team, obviously really good. I don't really need to say a whole lot more. 296 with the arms, and he still dropped 757. It's just a really good team, and it's going to be a really tough team to beat.
Yeah, 100%. We're moving on to the last matchup between Scott and Connor. Scott won 629 to Connor's 493. I'll start us off on this one. We've been saying for weeks that Scott has really elite bats. Scott put up 347, but Connor topped that number with 374. Really impressive, really interesting to see 78 points from Anthony Rizzo for Connor. I like to see anything above really 20 catching points, I'd say is pretty legit. 35 for Wilson Contreras this week is solid for Connor. 33 from Ryan McMahon, 37 from Brandon Marsh. Like Connor's got bats, bro. Like we've been saying both of them do. But again, the pitching made the difference. 282 for Scott to 119 for Connor. Um, Jordan Hicks had 35 for Scott. Nestor had an 18 again. But Ranger Suarez continues to dominate. Another Bismarck Lark legend, Ranger Suarez, at 87 points in a 2-start week. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And we mentioned a theme of tonight was relief pitching. Scott got 75 relief pitching points out of that 282, so solid for him and got all 12 starts. So, Scott's a force, man. I mean, we're gonna have that battle that you guys have been mentioning for that last playoff team or a couple last playoff teams. Scott's well in it, and if Connor could get some pitching too with these bats, man, watch out. I feel like these two guys are on the rise, so we're gonna go to Tita for his thoughts on this matchup.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, I think I think Connor is a hell of an owner. If you look at his team, I mean he's got a lot of me in him or what he does. I think he has sometimes more rhyme or reason. Um, but if you look at how his team is built, and then if you look on his team page with all the picks he has the next 3 years, um, it's impressive. I mean, I think he is. Like I said, Rizzo getting 78 this week. I play him next week. I'm not looking forward to it because, I mean, this dude just manages his tail off. You know, um, he makes really good moves, really sound moves. You understand why he makes the moves he does. Um, and he's willing to set on guys. He has a price. He's not going to go over that. And I just think in the future is really bright for him in his ball club. With Ben Lively getting 47, I mean, he like I said, he just does a really good job with managing his team. Scott also a really good owner. I've been in another league with him for years. Um, he knows exactly what his team needs. Like I said, losing Royce Lewis um, hurts him in the short term. But I mean, like I said, C.J. Abrams, Bryce Harper, Patrick Bailey. I mean, the dude has bats. Mountcastle is very underrated. His arms let him down some this week. Besides Ranger Suarez, who is just absolutely unstoppable this year. And like I said, Scott is in a really good spot. He's another owner that has a price on guys he's after, and he's not going to go over that price. And he's going to be in it at the end as far as he wants to go. I think he'll be a team that's fighting it out with me and Paul um, for that last spot and everything. So at the end of the day, like I said, this matchup kind of went how it was supposed to go. But the thing with Connor is he can scare you and he can beat you. So.
And Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, I know all about Connor beating you. So, I mean, it happened to me last week, obviously. So, but let me just say this. Do not let Connor get pitching, because if that guy gets pitching, watch out. I mean, his bats are there. 370 freaking points from his bats. It's not like it's a fluke either. Like, he has just really solid guys. Maybe not flashy guys, but guys that are going to grab 30, 35, 40 points a week. I mean, I know Rizzo went crazy this week, 78. Wilson Contreras, 35. Solid, just a solid bat, though. Brandon Marsh, solid bat. Um, Verdugo, who we just traded for. Two days of Verdugo, 26 points. So, I mean, Conforto, 32. These guys aren't going to be the flashy guys. They're not going to be the ones you go out and pay a king's ransom for. But just under the radar moves that he just keeps making here and there. And he's built that team into a team that's not going to get ran over. I mean, he ran over me last week. So it's a good team. It's a team that's on the rise. But like I said, if he gets pitching, watch out. He's going to be a force in this league. And then as for Scott, I'm not at all looking forward to playing him 3 times this year because he has some really good players pitching and hitting. I mean, I want to hone in a little bit on CJ Abrams. That guy's, I think, 22 years old. He is an absolute rising star. I mean, he's had a great month of April. Um, fast, has some power, just solid player, really going to be up there in shortstop rankings by midseason and probably going into next year, he could easily be a top 5 or at worst top 10 shortstop. So really good player there. Really did well to get him. And as for his pitching, Tita I think talked about it. Ranger Suarez has just been unhittable this year. 2-start week, 87 points, absolutely phenomenal. The one thing I do want to talk about real quick with Scott is his bullpen. Alex Lang, AJ Minter, and Jordan Romero. Those guys, none of them are closers for their teams. He still grabbed 75 points from his bullpen with 0 saves. I think he had, 5 holds? So, I mean, it's good. Obviously, holds matter in this league. They get points. If I'm Scott, I'm trying to go find a cheap closer. I'm not saying that any closers are cheap, but maybe that's what I would start shopping around for. See if you can grab somebody because it's going to matter. I mean, again, if you can grab 75 points from your bullpen, it doesn't matter because that's really good. But I kind of doubt his ability to consistently do that. So that's kind of if I had any advice for Scott, which he doesn't need to take my advice because obviously he knows what he's doing. But that's the one thing I would say about his team.
Interesting stuff. Now we're going to move on to our favorite part of the podcast where we discuss deals from the week. Our first day of deals was April 22nd, where Paul and I made a deal. Paul gets Jordan Wicks. I get Victor Scott and Ben Joyce. It's always fun to talk about these types of deals when the two people are on voice to hear their opinions. So, Paul, I'll let you go first. Why did you make this deal?
So, Tita kind of hinted at it and mentioned it. Really trying to build arms. Jordan Wicks is a 26-year-old arm for the Cubs. I wanted him mostly because I knew or thought at least at the time that he would have a 2-start week this week. And I basically was selling out, pulling every move I could make to beat Dave because going 0-4 was, in my mind at least, potentially a death sentence in terms of playoffs for this year. And I didn't want to be out of it in, April 28th. So I got Jordan Wicks. I like Victor Scott a lot. I think he's very good. I don't know if he'll ever be a star, but I think he's got great speed. Went to West Virginia, which always has a place in my heart. And then Ben Joyce, if he can get control down, he'll be a top-notch closer. I have my doubts that will ever happen, so it was a piece I was willing to move at the end of the day. For a guy like Jordan Wicks, who he made one start. I think he scored, 29. But then he went on the injured list. So, to be determined there, but that's kind of where my head was when I did this.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I kind of panicked here. Wicks came off 2 really not great starts, and I gave up Pete Crow Armstrong and James Triantos to get him. I was not in the mood to hang on and wait. I wanted to kind of recoup some assets, and Victor Scott is somebody that I consider to be a top 100 prospect. I feel like he's got that kind of estuary Ruiz type game where he can steal bases. He's fast and has the ability to hit a little bit too. So hopefully he'll get called back up to the Cardinals here soon. And Ben Joyce, I dropped him to send down Holiday. So really just Jordan Wicks for Victor Scott 1-for-1. And I felt like I needed the outfielder. So we're gonna move on to possibly the biggest trade of the week. Tita getting Manny Machado, John Haidt getting Marcelo Zuna, Marcelo Mayer, and Kyle Stowers. Tita, if you have any thoughts on that last Jordan Wicks trade, feel free to chime in, but really want to hear your thoughts on the Machado deal, especially.
Well, at the time, I kind of was, I wouldn't say desperate, but I thought Machado would help me going forward as a third base cog for me. Ozuna is a Braves fan. Um, he's been hot since around May of last year. Um, at the end of the day, Stowers is the worst. I thought Machado was going to be worth it. Mayer is an elite prospect. Had a down year last year, but I think he's still a dude. I kind of, as the week went on, kind of regretted it. Um, Especially kind of doing a deep dive. I know hindsight's 2020, kind of looking at Machado's metrics and the last couple years, he's been trending down, and I kind of got spooked tonight. Of course, I ended up moving on from him. Just his quality of contact metrics have been slipping. Um, so, I mean, at the end of the day, I was able to recoup, which could be a better package than I gave up. But like I said at the time, I was kind of in need of a third base long term because it was going to be able to give me some more moves that I had made. Of course, later on, it gave me the options. So, that's the way I looked at it. I think for height, it was a good way to keep a legit bat in his lineup and gain a couple assets.
And Paul, what do you think?
I'm not very big on Marcell Ozuna. I know he's had a great start to the season. I get, all the hype around him, 40, 45, 50 homers, whatever people think. I don't see it personally. Marcelo Mayer, I like a lot. He was part of the Caminero deal um, that went to Tita. And then Kyle Stowers. I mean, as an Oriole fan, I like him, but as a fantasy owner, I kind of see him as not much more than a worse because I think he'll be like a fourth outfielder maybe if he can even get that. But Manny Machado, I still like him a lot. I think he's 31 now. I want to say. Um, I still think that he can do pretty well out in San Diego. He's in a pretty decent lineup. But, I mean, overall, I would probably lean towards Tita here. I think Mayer is the only big piece that went to height, which is a good piece for height. I've talked in length about John Height needing to get younger, and Marcelo Mayer is a really good young piece in my opinion. So, but I mean, overall talent wise, I like the piece that Machado got, or that's the piece that Tita got in Machado. Overall.
Yeah, I mean, I want to give John Height some credit. This deal, I alluded to it a little earlier, but I think that Marcelo Mayer is a huge get for him. We got to remember he had Anthony Volpe around this time last year, traded him to me along with Jackson Churio for Garrett Cole, and Cole was a big part of why he won the league last year. So I'm not gonna, question that deal for him whatsoever. But we would be having a completely different conversation about John Height's team if there was an Anthony Volpe or Jackson Churio in there. And I feel like Marcelo Mayer could absolutely be somebody like that, where he's stepping up and producing fairly soon. I know the Red Sox are really high on him. And there might be a point in time later on in the season where Mayer comes up. I know Trevor Story already got hurt, and they've had to do a little bit of shuffling in the infield. I've owned Mayer a couple times. Um, I really like him. If John Height's ever willing to move him back to me, I would gladly take him. But I'd really like to see John Height kind of hold on to him and kind of have that shortstop of the future locked up. Um, Kyle Stowers, I like Kyle Stowers a lot, but Paul said it best. I don't know if he's going to be anything more than an outfield four in Baltimore. I believe he would be starting somewhere else if he was on a different team in a different kind of program because I really like him. I think he has a lot of talent. And Marcell Ozuna's kind of been balling. I don't know whether he keeps it up, but John Height doesn't really. I think in the short term, because that's all John Height is really thinking about right now is the short term. I believe Marcell Ozuna is an upgrade over Manny Machado at this moment, and John Height gets, in my mind, a top 15 prospect. And even if Stowers is a worst, he gets a worst. Why not? But Mayer's a big deal, and I really think that's a big piece for John Height going forward. Um, the next deal involves Tita and John Height, or Tita and Smell. Tita gets Josh Lowe. Smell gets Brock Wilken, Luis Morales, and my 2026 first. Tita, what? To give us your thoughts on your deal here.
Well, once I thought I was able to grab Machado as my long term third base cog, for next 3 or 4 years. That's probably like 1,000 trades of mine, during that time. Uh, I was like, okay, let me, Lau was on his way back, I thought. Uh, I was like, you know what? I feel like the price is right. I love Wilkin. I 100% love Wilkin as a long term third base prospect. I think he's going to be a stud. Morales is underrated. Your 26 first was a solid asset, I thought. But, I thought, okay, Josh Lau, 6 point bat in the outfield where I don't think necessarily I have a lot of long term bat fits right now, and I don't have any minor league outfielders outside of Zaire Hope, who I got back later in the week. So I thought it was worth it. Of course, then later on in the week, Lau injures his hamstring, so he could be out another 2 3 weeks, and then he'd have to go on another rehab assignment, and that's on the short end of a hammy injury. So I mean, I think at the end of the day, this is kind of one I may want back. Um, but in hindsight, like I said, um, I felt like with Machado at the time, it worked out and allowed me to move Wilkin. Like I said, if I had it to do over again, I don't think I would do it. But hey, you win some, you lose some. When you make as many trades as I do, you're going to lose some.
Yeah, and Paul, do you have any thoughts on this deal?
Yeah, I was so disappointed when I saw this deal, to be honest, because me and Tita have talked about Brock Wilken and Luis Morales just at length, I feel like. And when I saw I had traded both of these guys, I mean, Josh Lowe's fine. I kind of think he's a touch overrated. I mean, I don't know that I see the consistent power um, to vouch or to go for a guy like that. But I agree with Tita 100%. I think Brock Wilkins a top 5 third base prospect, and I think Luis Morales is a top 5 most underrated starting pitcher prospect in baseball. Um, so yeah, like to see those two go for Josh Lowe, who I think's overrated, I was so disappointed. But good for Smell. Those are two really nice pieces for a good rebuilding team.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add on this discussion, so we're going to move towards Dave getting Jack Flaherty and Chad getting Dalton Varsho 1-for-1. I want to point this out, even though it's not the biggest of deals. Dave getting pitching obviously is a big deal because we've always mentioned that Dave has some pretty good bats, but not a lot of arms. I feel like Dave is positionally strong in the outfield, and Jack Flaherty kind of got off to a good start. So interesting to kind of see that deal kind of be made here to fill a position of need for Dave. Do either of you have any thoughts on that deal, or I can move on?
Well, I just think Dave's gonna trade. I mean, if you got a pitcher that you want to trade, Dave's willing to move guys for those arms. So I mean, I kind of like it for Dave. I like Flaherty. I bet Chad probably thought he wanted an outfield bat young enough to kind of have for the next 3 or so years, and so I get it from both sides. Chad has the pitching to spare. So like I said, I get it.
Paul, any thoughts?
Yeah, Jack Flaherty, pitcher, obviously. So whenever a team gets a pitcher for a batter, I always like the team that gets the pitcher just because of what this league is. But specifically here, Dalton Varsho was the first 2 or 3 days of our matchup, me and Dave's matchup, was straight killing me. So I saw that trade and I was like, thank freaking God. Because I didn't want to see Dalton Varsho hit against me again. Because I'm not very high on Varsho at all. I've kind of made that clear since being in this league. I kind of think he's very overrated. So it was kind of ironic that he was killing me the first couple days. So again, when I saw this trade, I was pretty pumped.
Interesting. So now we're going to move on to a bigger deal here. Tita gets Christian Scott, Paul gets Willie Adamas, and Spencer Arrighetti two guys on the podcast here. So why don't we start with Tita with your thoughts on your deal here?
I've been after Christian Scott for a long time. I was after him with Bry a couple of times on some deals. Um, I've been after him with Paul and a couple of our deals. Um, I was actually surprised that Paul was entertaining the option of trading them to me. But it kind of put me in another shortstop hole that I had to dig out of. But like I said, I thought Scott is going to be worth it. I think he's going to be up in the next week or two, especially if Adrian Hauser keeps pitching like Adrian Hauser. So I was okay with the price for Scott.
Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, so there is background to this deal, but just on its face, this is probably one of the worst deals I've made in this league. I mean, I like Willie Adames a lot, but man, I think Christian Scott's going to be really good. And the second I traded him away, I felt bad doing it. But the background here is Chad and I were talking about potentially a Tovar for Brandon Pfaadt deal. I thought I had more progress on that than I actually did. And so Tita came to me and said, what kind of player would I be, what kind of ideal return would I be looking for Scott? And I looked at his team and I saw Adames. And I was like, well, I get Willie Adames, I trade away Tovar, bing bang, perfect. And I upgrade from Christian Scott to Brandon Pfaadt in the interim, which I do think is an upgrade. I do like Brandon Pfaadt a lot. I do like Christian Scott a lot too, but I think Pfaadt's the better pitcher. So I was like, upgrade on there, and then upgrade from Tovar to Adames, which I also think is a slight upgrade. I was like, boom, perfect. I'm gonna maybe just lose a third, or not a huge piece. And then I turn around and go to Chad, and Chad was like, no, like it's not very close. And so it caused a lot of panic for me, which we'll get into in the next few trades. But this deal, I think it's a clear win for Tita. One of the worst deals I've made, I think, this season.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't have much to add. I wanted to hear y'all's discussion, but you mentioned Brandon Pfaadt. Tita got Brandon Pfaadt shortly after that deal was made, and Brandon Pfaadt in a second to Tita for Nate Lau and Cade Povich. Tita, what are your thoughts on your deal?
I feel like I had enough outfield bats. I liked Povich, but I thought Pfaadt, which I was, it was kind of funny because I was in on Pfaadt earlier, and I kind of had a thought that I would be able to get him. And when Paul's like, "Yeah, I think I'm getting Pfaadt," I was like, "Oh crap," So I was trying to up my offer for Scott before I got Pfaadt, if that makes sense. Um, but of course, Paul ended up getting them, and he put up a good number. Usually, when I get young starting pitching, it's to move them. I may need to maybe reassess in the future on some guys, because Pfaadt is a guy I've kind of liked as well. And I traded Bailey Ober earlier last week to Dave, which is another one I kind of regret. So maybe I need to start holding on to some of these younger guys and letting them get peak value. But I was okay with the price, getting a second round pick, which probably maybe be a late second rounder, but it's still a second rounder that can end up being a top 100 guy in the top 30 player in the draft. So I was okay with the price. Nate Lyle's solid, but I felt like with guys that I have, I could get that production from him, from other guys at the first base spot. So I was okay with the price.
Paul, what do you think about this deal?
I mean, it's one that I thought I was close with Chad on, and disappointed obviously to see Pfaadt go to Tita. But when I break it down and I see Pfaadt well over Povich. I mean, I like Povich, Orioles guy, but he's got a lot of command issues, and I think he's 24 now in AAA. I think he'll be up at some point. It's going to be tough now because the Orioles are getting back Bradish and Means this week, so the bullpen or the rotation is pretty crowded. But then you break it down low. Obviously, I'd take well over that second round pick, so it kind of breaks out pretty even. Obviously, I like the pitching side a little bit more with Fott, but overall, it's actually probably a pretty decent deal for both sides.
Yeah, I was sorry. I was talking about Fott too with Chad before he made that deal. Chad clearly wanted some first base help because my deal would have been Vinny Pasquantino for Brandon Fott and Colt Keith. Colt Keith, somebody I really like too. So that would have been a kind of interesting what if in this situation. But yeah, so moving on. We're gonna skip a little just for time purposes here. We're gonna go to me and Paul. I get Ezekiel Tovar. Paul gets Ryan Weathers. I'll give my thoughts first. I like Ryan Weathers a lot, but I didn't think what he was doing was kind of sustainable, and I don't like Miami at all. So I really didn't want to own any more Miami pitchers than I had to. I already traded AJ Puck earlier this year. And Tovar's always been kind of just one of my guys. Like I don't care how many shortstops I have. If he's one of them, I really like him, and I'm happy to have made this deal. Paul, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so this is tied, I think, maybe with my Tita deal that I discussed earlier. I mean, I panicked. I think I can admit that. I was on like day two of having Gunner, Tovar, and Adamas, and I really, really didn't want to have three shortstops. I like all three of them. I really do. I really like Tovar. But I wanted the pitcher. I wanted to get somebody. I thought that Fott was gone forever from me. So I was like, well, let me go try and find because my goal, at least for this week, and obviously things can change, is my goal was to get, mid-20s starting pitchers that were succeeding in the league. Ryan Weathers checked the boxes on that. At the time, I know he just came off a negative 2-point start, but I mean, he threw up like 40 points one start, like 35 another start. Ryan Weathers has been a very hot and cold pitcher for me in this league. I had him a few times last year when he was with San Diego. And he'd have great start and then he'd have a terrible start. He'd move to the bullpen. He got demoted, I think, once. So, I was pretty out on him. And then he kind of started really hot this year. So I bought back in. I still believe that there's something there. I think he was the 7th pick in his draft. So he's got the pedigree. It's the question now is, can he find consistency? Because if he can, I think he's a top 30, top 40 pitcher in baseball. But I think he's still a far way away from finding that consistency. But fortunately, he's got time to find it. But I mean, Tovar, 22, already raking in Major League Baseball. He's going to be good for a long time, I think. So yeah, I fully admit that I think I could have gotten more for Tovar, but people were like, I was trying to sell him to people. People were kind of like lukewarm about trading for him. Save for Connor. I mean, Connor, he put out a pretty decent offer. I probably should have taken his offer and just been done with it. I didn't. It's in the past now. I can't fix it. So, yeah, I mean, it's a good deal, I think, for you, Braxton. I know you already have a ton of shortstops, but again, there's nothing wrong with rostering a 22-year-old shortstop in the majors already. So,
Yeah, so we're going to move on to two deals that are kind of in conjunction with each other here. Tita gets Eloy Jimenez and a 2025 third, which is his own. Paul gets Ronel Blanco. And then less than 24 hours later, Paul gets Brandon Fott. Tina gets Ronel Blanco back, Chase Petty, and Denzel Clark. So Gentlemen, both of you. We'll start with Tita. What are your thoughts on those two deals between you and Paul?
Felt like I bought low on the impact bat, which was Eloy. Um, at the time, like I said, Blanco. I don't think anybody's ever sure right now when a guy pops up like that and is doing the things he's doing. Um, like I said, getting the pick was big for me. I'm just try to get as many assets just in case I got to pay off some worse as well down the line on some trade steps. And then Fott, I thought a little bit of Blanco is going to match what Fott does. He's still relatively, I mean, he's 30, but he doesn't have a lot of miles on his arm. Chase Petty, top 100 guy, and then getting the worst was somebody because I wanted to pick up a guy, Gerald Perez, who is killing it for the Dodgers right now. He has a lot of helium. He's really in at low A, but that was the kind of the guy I was targeting to pick up from that worst. I think at the end, Paul kind of got what he wanted, and I got what I wanted. And I don't know if for me, Petty and Gerald Perez, who I picked up for that worst, I would take that over Povich. I would take Petty alone over Povich. So getting the spec that I had my eyes on for that worst was also big. And Blanco and Lau, I think Blanco could be legit. I still don't know. But like I said, I'm sure Paul was happy getting fat, and it kind of worked out for both of us.
And Paul, what do you believe? What do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, I break it down as um it was the same. It was what, like, and not even a half hour later after the Ryan Weathers trade, I was just like, I really need pitching, and I was gonna go to almost any lengths to get it. Um, he Tito wasn't really talking fought with me at the time, but he would talk Blanco, and I was like, screw it, I'll just take Blanco. I gave up Eloy, who I like a lot. We'll get into how much I like him a lot and a little bit later, but it was the trade I was willing to do just because Blanco, as I had said, SP1 for the season. I know he had the no hitter, but even without the no hitter, he's probably still in the top 10. And I was like, well, I can deal with that. He was playing Colorado. Colorado has a mostly weak lineup, I think. So it was worth it. Plus that stipulation. I was somewhat confident that he would hit 24 starts. And so I saw it as basically a 1-for-1 Blanco for Eloy. And it was just something I was willing to do. And then, 24 hours later, I turn around and I do end up getting fought. Trade away Blanco because for all what I've just said about Blanco, I was definitely scared of Blanco because one bad start, and I think his value is just torpedoed because everyone would say, oh, well, he only had a couple good starts, got lucky with a no hitter. He's not actually that good, which, again, I would believe that myself. So I kind of didn't want to chance it because the games in Mexico City that he pitched in, high elevation, blah blah blah. We talked about it earlier. Um, Chase Petty, I like Chase Petty a lot. Cincinnati Reds pitcher. He's been off to a pretty bad start though, and I think he's in Double A. A lot of walks, a lot of command issues. Guys like that, I kind of start to stray away from in the minors because it's really tough to fix command, I think. If you have command, then you can work on your stuff a little bit. But if you don't have command, your stuff's not going to do much. Um, that's just my personal philosophy. Didn't like giving up a worse. I mean, Denzel Clark, I think he's a little bit better than a worse, but I digress. And then having the SIP flip back upon me, I did not like that really at all. But I was still willing to do it just to get a guy like Fott. So yeah, I mean, I paid a lot. I know I paid a lot to get Fought, but as we saw today, his start was pretty good against Seattle. So, I like what I have in him. I think he's a budding future ace, at least fantasy wise. So I was pretty thrilled.
All right, and we're gonna move on to me and Tita trade here. I get Colson Montgomery and Orlando Arcia. Tita gets Hunter Brown, Robert Hassel, and Nolan Gorman. I'll go first on this. I think Colson Montgomery is a surefire top 10 spec in baseball. I hope he plays third base. He has third base eligibility, but I see he's been playing more shortstop in the minors. Again, I will have a whole team of shortstops if I have to, but because all these dudes are elite players, in my opinion. So I really like Colson Montgomery, Hunter Brown. I kind of admit I kind of lost out on Hunter Brown. I traded Casey Mize and Jared Kalenic to get Hunter Brown. He hasn't been very good since I got him, so kind of didn't want to have the Hunter Brown experiment go on any longer for me. So losing Nolan Gorman sucks because I like him, but again, I have all these second basemen and shortstops that I can use. You guys were talking about Bryce Terang a little earlier, and when Holiday comes back up, eventually he'll play second base, and I think I'll be okay on that department. But Tito, what do you think?
Well, I kind of found myself in a hole after making a bunch of deals and buying a little bit. I think I got down to like 5 specs, and this was kind of one of them to where um, I wanted to recoup some assets. This time last year and in the preseason, I mean, Hunter Brown was still a hot name, and I still think he had. I mean, he pitches for the Astros, and if anybody's going to fix Hunter Brown, it's going to be the Astros. Um, his K per nine numbers are still there. Um, just been struggling. So I mean, I thought, at the beginning of the year, getting Colson, getting Gorman, uh, getting Hassel, which is maybe a worse, maybe a little better than the worst. I thought was enough value. Just talking to people, I think Colson, he's got a high ceiling, but he struggled a little bit in Double A, and he's got a low floor. And I just worry about anybody with the right White Sox in their development. Um, Name the last White Sox position player that's legitimately been developed by them. I won't say Luis Robert. I mean, he was elite. I won't say Eloy Jimenez. He was developed by the Cubs. Uh, so, who was the last Sox
Tim
guy?
Anderson?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
Tim
maybe.
Anderson.
That's a good question.
Yeah. And that, the more I thought about it, and I actually asked Tomko's opinion on Colson. Um, and the comp is still there. He's got a great lefty swing. He plays a premium position. But even Honko was like, hey, man, I'm a White Sox fan. I don't really trust the player development for the White Sox. And that kind of spooked me. And then just getting the for sure major league assets for now, it just kind of worked out for me for my thinking. But Colson could come back and bite me in my butt. So who knows?
All right, we're going to talk about three more deals here, Paul, unless you want to chime in on the Colson Hunter Brown deal real quick.
No, I'm okay. I mean, Tita covered it pretty well.
Okay. So Tita gets Alex Verdugo, Owen Murphy, Gyro in Iriarte, a third and a fourth, and Connor gets Josh Lau. Tita, talk a little bit about this one.
Um, I kind of panicked on Saturday because I thought Lau was coming back. Ended up being in a roster crunch. Wanted to go ahead and get Lau up, and ended up making a terrible mistake of trading Verdugo for a worst. Um, if you look at Verdugo over the years, the dude's been a consistent 5.5 point plus bat. Um, and he's a year older than Lau. So kind of thinking of it, I was like, you know what? Like, honestly, is the difference between Verdugo point wise, the name value's different, but point wise, Verdugo is going to be about where Lau is. Let's be honest. So looking at it, I've been after Iriarte for a while. He's pitching great in Double A. There's nothing to stop him if he decides to be a dude to move up to Chicago. Being a Braves fan, Owen Murphy's my guy. First round pick a couple years ago. Good control. Starting to do some good things. I think he'll be moved up to Double A soon. And then just getting 2 picks just gives you some assets. My third this year, I tried to get another 25 pick, but Connor wasn't biting. And then for Connor, he can get, I want to say, maybe a really good bat in his lineup going forward. He can afford to wait on him a little more. With the hamstring injury, I just wasn't sure how much longer he would be out. And so I needed to go ahead and make a move. And so I was happy with it.
Paul, do you have any thoughts on this?
I think this, of all the trades we talked about, I think this is probably the best example of a win-win. Tita getting, recouping a lot of assets, and not just assets, I think pretty decent assets. He talked to Owen Murphy. Owen Murphy's a good pitcher. I mean, he's a really good pitcher and a really good system. And Iriarte, now with the White Sox, same thing. I mean, I think he's a bit more risky in terms of whether he becomes a starter or ends up in the bullpen. But regardless, he has great stuff, pretty decent command. So, I mean, I like both of those guys, but Alex Verdugo, and Tita touched on it, Alex Verdugo probably is the most boring player in baseball, but it's because he consistently performs, but he'll never wow you. He'll never hit 3 home runs in a game kind of thing. He's going to get you 20 home runs. He's going to get you 80 RBIs. He might get you 4 or 5 steals, maybe. And he's going to hit 270, 275. And he's just going to do that for a 10-year career, and he'll be fine. So, yeah, I like that a lot. But, I mean, Josh Lowe, I know I kind of crapped on him earlier, but Josh Lowe does have star potential if he can put everything together. I mean, there is that potential. I personally don't believe this, but I'm just saying what people think, that he could be like a 30-30 guy. I mean, if he's a 30-30 guy, then that's star number 1 for Connor. Maybe not number 1. I know he's got other good players. I don't want to say that about Connor's team, but I mean that's a potential cornerstone type of player. So I know it's 5 assets that he gave up for Josh Lowe. It's still, Josh Lowe could be that good, and he could be that guy. So I get it for both sides. I think it's a true win-win. So yeah, I think well done on both accounts.
So yeah, I know I said we were going to talk about three more trades, that one being included, but I do want to briefly have you guys talk about your opinions on your own Eloy Jimenez to Paul for Jordan Wicks and Spencer Schwellenbach deal for Tita. I want Tita to start us off very quickly because we're crunching up on time here.
I've kind of got a bat jam, where I got a lot of the same kind of bats. Kind of PM, put him on the block. Paul messaged me. We kind of went back and forth. I kind of want, for me, having that bat, taking a chance on Wicks, hopefully not being dead. Because if I waited another week and Wicks is fine, I don't think I get anything more than Wicks for Eloy. And then getting Schwellenbach's a guy that he's kind of a dark horse to make some starts in Atlanta this year. He's a guy that's come off Tommy John, was a shortstop and pitcher in college. So I mean, as a Braves fan, he's a guy I like. I just thought for me, getting Wicks as a potential, starting pitcher, just try. I just thought now was the time to kind of jump on that and see if I could get another asset with Wicks. And then we canceled the Blanco trade step, so I'm sure Paul was cool with that too.
And Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, real quick. Thrilled that I got to cancel that stip. I hated that stip. I didn't want any part of that stip, so didn't want that. But this, I mean, I think most people in the league know about the Justin Steele saga from last year. had a injury during a start. I thought he was ticketed for Tommy John. Traded him to Bry for pennies, and he only missed 2 weeks. And then he was really, really good in the rest of the season, obviously. I think there is potential for that happening again to me. It's a Cubs pitcher. It's a Cubs lefty pitcher, even. So, I mean, to kind of compound on what Tita said, two or 3 days from now, if it turns out that Wicks is going to be okay, there's not a chance that this deal happens. So it was kind of a passing closing window opportunity here. I think probably for both of us. Because same thing like Eloy, if he goes off and hits 3 home runs tomorrow, I'm sure Tita's not trading them to me for that. Or if he gets hurt tomorrow, I'm sure I'm not trading for him. And so I think it kind of works out, both of us getting kind of what we need. I like Eloy a lot. I said I talk about him. So my wife is a White Sox fan. I like, the White Sox kind of by marriage, I guess. I follow them just as much as the Orioles. I really like Eloy. I liked him in preseason. I know he got hurt like a week into the season, not even. And that's his MO, that he gets hurt a lot. But I know that he worked out a lot this offseason. I know he's getting his body in better shape. And if he's healthy, I think he's a very impactful bat, which I kind of needed after moving, Tovar and all those guys to get arms. I was kind of getting bat deficient a little bit. So getting a guy like Eloy, I think, really improves my bats, the state of my bats. And like Tita said, he was kind of bat heavy, and I was a little bit, not too much. You can never be too much arm heavy, but just a touch arm heavy. So I think it was a good deal for both of us.
Interesting. And speaking of arms, Tita and I made another deal where I get Kyle Teal, Yohan Moncada, Craig Kimbrell, and Albert Suarez. Tita gets Graham Ashcraft, Seton Hall legend David Festa, and Richie Paliasos. I'm just going to pronounce it like that. Tita, if you want to give your thoughts on it real quick.
I mean, for me, it was. Sorry, what trade are we talking about?
Your Graham Ashcraft one with me earlier tonight.
Okay. I like Festa. I think Festas could really be up soon. I think he's the next guy. He's starting to get his control in a good spot. Ashcraft was a guy that has potential, and he has great stuff. Sometimes if he ever puts it all together, I think he's a top. He could be is a top 40, 50-ish starter. And then the guys I gave away at the end of the day, Kyle Till is a good bat. Don't think he's a catcher long term. And then I just had to get rid of some spare parts as well for me. And anytime you can get arms, you're putting yourself in a good position in this league.
Yeah, I agree with you. Kyle Teal to me is worth a significant amount. I view him as, my opinion, the best catching prospect in the league, and I view him as, I mean, people are going to call me crazy for this, but I don't care. Like an Adley Rutschman type catcher in Dynasty to own. So he's one of the 3 or 4 catchers that fit my mold and my strategy, and I really will pay to get that done to where I don't have to worry about the catcher position, hopefully for the foreseeable future. I think he debuts at some point later on in the year, because that was what I was reading was the Red Sox plan for him, was to get him up before the year is over. So we'll see how that goes. I've always been a Yohan Moncada guy. I haven't had great third base depth all year, so getting him back kind of made me happy here. Craig Kimbrell, I still believe, is an elite closer. And Albert Suarez is off to a good start this year, but of all the pieces I gave up, I'm definitely going to miss Seton Hall legend David Festa. So moving on to the big trade of the night, unless Paul wants to chime in real quick.
No, I'm okay.
Okay. So moving on to the big trade of the night, Cody gets Manny Machado from Tita. Tita gets Lourdes Gurriel, James Triantos, and AJ Smith-Shawver. Tita, tell us about your deal here.
Kind of going back to the Machado thing, like I said, once I did the deep dive, which I probably should have done beforehand, really was a little concerned about his quality of contact metrics. I mean, he's still Manny freaking Machado. Don't know if he's 100% healthy from the elbow as well, off-season surgery. But at the end of the day, for me, it was just trying to recoup some assets. And I look at the package I gave up. So I gave up Ozuna, gave up Mayer, gave up a worse. So I look at it, okay, is Lourdes Gurriel and Marcell Ozuna similar type bats? I would say yes. I mean, and Gurriel's 3 years younger, and I can actually put him in the outfield where Ozuna was a utility only bat. I looked at it like James Triantos. He's a solid top 75, top 80 spec. He can make he's going to play somewhere. He's got a solid bat. And then AJ Smith-Shawver is a Braves fan, huge ceiling, low floor. I don't know. I thought it was really for me, like I said, it was enough for me to pull the trigger. Gives me some more bat depth. So I just thought it was time. It was okay to pull.
Paul, what do you think about this deal?
Yeah, I mean, Tita broke it down actually kind of perfectly, comparing what he gave up to get Machado and then what he got for Machado. Yeah, I couldn't put it any better. But just focusing solely on this part of it, this deal, I'm not very big on AJ Smith-Shawver personally. I mean, I know that people are. It's just he's not for me. Lourdes Gurriel, I always try and avoid him because he kills me every time I play him. But when he doesn't play against me, I think he's average. I don't think he's like crazy special or anything. For me, the prize of this deal was James Triantos. I like James Triantos a ton. He's kind of blocked in Chicago by Nico Horner because I think he's the second baseman long term. But yeah, I like Triantos a lot. I think he's a good blend of power and speed and batting average. Three pretty good things in fantasy baseball. So I mean, I get Machado. Cody really needs to beef the bats up, and I think this is a good step towards that. I don't know who the winner, I guess, would be of this deal. I'd probably lean a little bit Cody, simply because I'm not as big on Smith-Shawver or Gurriel. But I get where Brett or Tita's coming from, especially when he compared and contrasted what he got and gave up with Machado.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with you too. Just about, I think Lourdes Gurriel is significantly better than Ozuna, but I think Marcelo Mayer is the best player involved out of any of both packages. That's how high I am of Mayer. But with our luck, Machado will stop struggling as soon as Cody gets him, and he'll come back to form here. And I was going to stop talking about the deals, but Tita just made another massive deal here. We're waiting to see what the return is, but Tita just traded for Alec Boehm. Oh, wow. Okay, so Tita gets Alec Boehm live on podcast, along with Tyler Mall and a 2025 third from Cody. Smell gets Graham Ashcraft, Hunter Brown, and Samuel Basallo. Tita, go run us down on these thoughts live on the podcast here. Big blockbuster to close out Sunday night.
Me and Smell been kind of working on this. For me, the hardest part to give up was Basallo. He's a guy I was after with Paul for a long time. I mean, I look at Hunter Brown. Like I said, I still think Hunter Brown is going to bounce back and be a good starting pitcher. Ashcraft, like I said, if he can put it all together, is solid, and it helps Smell with his pitching. I kind of avoid trying to buy guys on a heater because ultimately the fall is not going to be what it is. I think for me getting Bohm, he's going to be that third baseman that I thought Machado would be. And then Tyler Molly. I've never can pronounce his last name. I've always liked that guy. Like I've had him for years in different leagues. He's a guy that I can stash on the IR, and the Rangers. If he comes back and he's starting in that rotation for the Rangers, he's legit. and then just getting another draft pick to help me replenish some assets. But it wasn't an easy deal to move because I am really high on Basalo, and Basalo alone could, ultimately be a better bat than Bohm. I also just get worried about specs though a little bit in Baltimore, as Paul can probably back me up on this. Where are you going to play all these guys? And
Fact.
that kind of worries me is how is Basalo may not be far away, but really how far away is he? Because Kobe Mayo's got to play somewhere. Mountcastle is a good first baseman. He's a good ball player. Kerstat's supposed to be moving to first base. Basalo's not going to be a catcher. Could he be a DH? Yeah, but I mean, there's other bats, and there's a lot of bats in that system. So that was kind of my thinking on it.
And Paul, what do you think?
Well, to answer that part of it real quick, we could do an entire podcast of me talking about the Orioles and how they need to move specs and around and blah blah blah. I'm not going to get into that now. Just this deal on its face, really like it for Smell actually. Alec Boehm has been great. I'm not going to say he hasn't, because he has been great, and he's like, I think somebody said earlier, like post hype type of player. I do think it's legit. I do think Alec Boehm can finish this year in the top 5 for third baseman, which it's exactly what Tita just said he's looking for. So again, I think overall Boehm's probably, and I'll say this very hesitantly, but he's probably the best player in the deal. So you can't say Tita just lost on his face, like, dismissed out of hand, blah, blah, blah. I like Graham Ashcraft a decent amount. I won't say that I love him, but he's decent. I still believe in Hunter Brown. I know he's had probably the worst start you could have to this season. But there's only one way to go. I mean, I guess not really, but you know what I mean. And then Samuel Basallo. Okay. Samuel Basallo, I hated to trade him to Tita. It was in the Caminero trade. That was the one piece that I was the most like really didn't want to give up, but at the end of the day, it got me Caminero, which I'm happy about. I like Samuel Basallo a lot. Um, it's hard to say that his future is going to be in Baltimore just because of what Tita said. I do think he can stick at catcher. I think he's going to need a lot of work on that. But I think he can, at least initially in his career. I think by his late 20s, he'll probably have to move off it because I don't think he has the body for it. But he's just a really good prospect. And I think this time next year, he's probably top 10 in prospects. So yeah, it's exactly what Smell wants. He gets 2 arms and a top, in my opinion, right now probably a top 25 prospect, and I think moving up. But Tita gets what he wants. He gets his third baseman of the now and probably the future, at least some amount of future. Again, who knows with Tita? Uh, I agree on his assessment with Molly before he went down with Tommy John. Molly was, killing it with Cincinnati. And then I think he was killing it with Minnesota, I want to say. And now he's with the Rangers. So, I mean, again, he's a good pitcher. I totally won't dismiss him out of this deal. He's a very good pitcher. And when he comes back, I expect him to be that. But yeah, I got to side a little bit with Smell on this one, just because of Basalo.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes perfect sense for both sides, honestly. Smell gets some arms, and Smell can afford to be patient on Hunter Brown and see if he can get that upside back and be the Hunter Brown we all know and love. Graham Ashcraft, I have owned both of these pitchers, and I really do actually like both of them. So, a bat and an arm for 2 arms in this league is not really heard of very much, much less big names like Hunter Brown, and I consider Graham Ashcraft to be a pretty decent name, but I like it for both sides because, like you all mentioned about Tita and Machado, Bohm can be that guy. Bohm is also somebody I've also owned a lot. over the last couple years, and I'm glad to see he's finally up and producing for somebody here. So, all right, we're gonna go now to our third segment of our podcast, which is the next week previews. We're gonna try to make this a little quick because I know we spent a little bit more time on deals than anticipated, but we're just gonna go down real quick and name a winner and a little bit of an explanation why. We'll start with me versus Paul this week. Paul is gonna win. I don't have much else to say. Paul, what about you?
Yeah, I'm hopeful I'll win. I'm hopeful this performance against Dave is going to catapult me into a little bit of a winning streak, which is two. Two is a winning streak, so and I'll take it if it happens. Um, it's my pitching, and I'm very excited. And hopefully, this time next week, talking about Kyle Bradish making his Orioles debut for the season. I'm very much looking forward to that. But I will pick me in this matchup. 600 is always my goal. Hopefully, that's where I'll be.
Tita, who do you think wins this matchup?
Paul.
Cool. All right. On to Cody versus Scott. I think Cody's going to win. I think Cody's the class of the league, and I don't think we would be too surprised to see another undefeated season by a different team, to be honest with you guys. So I think Scott puts up a respectable number, but Cody blows it away. So what do you guys think, starting with you, Tita?
I think Paul's going to keep it close early. I mean, not Paul. Shoot, Scott. Um, I think, like I said, to ask Cody's arms to do what they did last week. I mean, of course, it's 100% possible, but I think we could look up on Thursday or Friday and it be within like 50 to 75 points. Um, but I do think Cody pulls it out late. But like I said, I think Scott, I keep calling him Paul. I think Scott is going to give him a good game. I really do. For a while, he's going to put a little scare in him, and then Cody's going to pull away later on in the week.
And Paul, what do you think?
I exactly agree with Tita's assessment that Scott keeps it. He'll keep it close early, heading into like Friday, Saturday, and then I think Cody ends up winning by about 100, 150.
All right, we're gonna move on to Hen Dog versus John Height, the battle for Seton Hall here. I'm gonna take John Height solely because I believe in John Height's pitching more than Hen's, and I could be totally wrong about this. We could be talking next week just about how Hen is right up there with all the top dogs, literally, no pun intended. But I don't see it. I think John Height wins by maybe 100 plus. So, what about you, Paul?
I don't know if it's an upset or not, but I'm taking Hen. I think Hen has the best top to bottom roster. I've said that for a month at least now, and I'm standing by it. I think John Height's team has been exposed a little bit as to how he can be beat, and I think Hen is going to take the battle of Seton Hall and take this one.
And Tita, what do you think?
I'm gonna agree with Paul there. I think Hen's gonna rebound. Um, being a Braves fan, Acuna has been. I mean, he's been okay. I mean, he's not been what he usually is and what he's going to be. And so I think Acuna has a big week. I think Corbin Carroll has a big week, and I think the Beach Dogs knock off the Yard Goats.
Interesting. Okay, I'm the only one here, so we'll see what happens on throughout the week here, and we'll talk about it next week on the podcast. But now we're going to move on to Homco versus Chad. Um, I'm going to take Chad in this matchup because I really like where Chad's team is going. I think that there's a good collection of young bats and young arms that will be too much for Homco here, but I think it's going to be relatively close, probably 50 to 75 points. Tito, what do you think?
Um, I agree. I think this will be a close matchup as well. I think it'll be all week, really. Um, like I said, Homco is a talented. His team is talented. You just, I mean, they're just in a rut. They're in an early season rut. if it was my team, I would have done probably traded everybody because I don't have the patience like that. Um, I think it'll be close. I think Chad pulls it out. I just kind of like his team a little more, and they're clicking a little more than Homco's is right now. And it just depends on the starts. If Homco only gets 7 or 8 starts again, then I think it's Chad pretty easy.
And Paul, what do you think?
I think this ends up being the closest match of the week. But I think Tita hit on it exactly with that last part that he said. Humko needs to make sure that he gets the starts at least 8, but closer to 12 if he can do it. I mean, realistically, can do it because that's how you win in this league. Like you gotta get your 12 starts, in my opinion, at least 11 or so. And I don't know if it was took a day off of managing or whatever, missed a start, whatever it was. 7 starts isn't good. It's not going to cut it. So yeah, get those starts, Homco, and if he does, I think it's going to be real close. I also will take Chad just in a nail biter though.
I'm going to give Homko the benefit of the doubt here before we continue on, because I've been having some problems with Fantrax myself when saying the guy's starting and then he doesn't, or he's scheduled for 2 starts in a week and then it doesn't happen. I don't know. It kind of just things change sometimes, and maybe Homko set his lineup once and maybe forgot, or just something happened. Who knows? But Fantrax has been a little spotty with that recently, so I might
That's fair.
just give him the benefit of the doubt. But all right, we're moving on to Tita versus Connor. I want to let Tita talk about his matchup first.
I think if you kind of look at my lineup situation now, my bats have never been a problem, but I'm very very happy with what I got bat wise. Um, currently, there's not a huge pressing issue. I think that's big. Of course, I'll be ready to make some deals and move some guys around. Um, but I also think too, there are some starts that I'm starting now. Especially moving those 2 pitchers to where it could blow up on me. Where it's the Soriano against Cleveland, and I'm not too keen on starting Gill now at Baltimore, and I'm not too keen on starting Kenta Maeda uh, at the Yankees next weekend. So there's a couple of spot starts. There's a couple of starts there, 3 of them that could really go south on me. But now since I made that trade to get the third baseman, it kind of it is what it is. I had to do what I had to do. And I think Connor's going to, make it a battle. Connor's going to give you everything he's got. He's one of my favorite trade partners. We always kind of dig around and find some guys and, give each other equal value. So, I'm going to have to take a week off from trading with him. But I think he's going to battle me. And like I said, I don't think my team is just elite talent wise. We just, my bats are pretty consistent, and it's just going to come down to my arms. And I just think I do have, better arms than he has. But I mean, it's not like I got guys that you say, all right, I'm going to throw in there and this guy's going to get me 30. So, I mean, it could go either way as far as that part of it. So, I mean, I think I'm going to win, but I mean, Connor, you know, he's going to keep it close. He's going to give me everything he's got.
Interesting, Paul. What do you think?
Yeah, this matchup, I think it's a matchup of 2 of the, I'd say probably top 3 or 4 managers in this league, owners, whatever you want to call it, between Connor and Tita. Hard to say because almost certainly this is the team that I'm looking at right now for Tita is not going to be the team that we talk about this on Sunday, this coming Sunday. Again, it's don't because I have full confidence Connor's going to score probably about 550. If Tita can beat 550, I think he'll win, and I think he can and will beat that. So I guess this is a long answer, but I'm going to take Tita here. But I would not be surprised to see Connor get another win.
Interesting. I'm going to kind of echo a little bit of what's been said here. I think this one is going to be the closest match of the week, not the Homco Chad one. I know we've been discussing that, but I think that this is going to go right down to the wire. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna give it to Tita, just because I think that he's going to get a lot of streaming points. I think that a couple of his bats are going to rebound. I don't think some of those starts might be as bad as he thinks. I mean, we're going to see. But I agree with Paul. 550 is the number. I think it could easily be 600 to 550. So moving on to two probably lopsided matchups this week. It's going to be Jab and the Sea Dogs against Smell and the Chihuahuas. Like some of the matchups we've had in the past, it's not a matter of who wins, it's a matter of how much. I think that Jab is going to beat Smell fairly easily, probably by 200 plus points. Does anyone disagree with that?
No.
No.
Well,
Paul?
I was gonna pick Smell until he traded Bohm, so now I can't pick Smell.
Whoa, interesting. Really?
No, I'm just kidding. No.
Oh, no. No. All right. Moving on to Bry versus Dave. Kind of same situation. Does anybody object to Bry winning by 150 to 200 points?
No.
No.
Yeah, that's a no for me as well.
Okay. Well, that concludes our third segment of our podcast and our night together. Does anybody have any closing thoughts before we officially sign off tonight? Paul, we'll go to you.
Happy I got the win against Dave. Shout out Dave. Respect to Dave. But yeah, I'd mentioned it in real briefly in our match at Bracton. Very excited to get Kyle Bradish back. Personally, and as obviously his owner in this league. I like where I'm at. I think my bats are starting to get there. I think my arms are starting to get there. Just excited to kind of get at it now. And I know I'm in a hole already, 1-3. But as it's been said a million times in this podcast, there's legitimately like 12 teams that can easily say, and it could be more. I mean, if Smell buys, if other teams buy, could be more than 12. Like it's crazy how competitive this league is, and it's going to make for just a crazy season, and I'm looking forward to it.
And Tita, what are your final thoughts?
Great league. There's great managers. I'm looking forward to going up against one of my good buddies, Connor, on here. Like I said, it's gonna be a battle. Me and Connor are kind of similar in owners, and we're always looking for the assets and the next move and planning ahead. And but overall, it's just a great league. Tons of good matchups. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to another good week and seeing what happens in probably maybe I think the best league around for fantasy baseball.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to echo what you guys said. This is by far my favorite fantasy league of any sport. I've been in it since sophomore year of high school. I'm a senior in college, about to graduate in 2 weeks. So that just shows just the greatness that we've really been a part of here. And I can't thank you guys enough for joining me tonight. Thank everybody else in the league for making this, what do you call it, have some content to talk about. This league is the most active league of all time, really. I can't think of any other league that makes as many trades as we do, just anything. So, love you guys. Y'all are the best. Paul, go easy on me this week. It's going to be ridiculous. I probably am going to lose by 200, just like those other guys might to some of those top teams. Um, we'll see. Just hoping for another rebound, or hoping for a rebound week from Churio and Merrill and some of the other Jacksons, and hopefully Anthony Volpe keeps it up. But that'll be it for us tonight with the Base on Balls podcast. I'm Bracton, and I hope you guys have a really good night. All right.